Today I'm going to be talking about breaking through your fears through my own personal experiences. I just wanted to say, fear, we all fear fear, but sometimes, fear can be a great mentor. It can be a guide for us in our life. And with every new challenge comes a new set of fears. The fear does not go away. It's here to stay. It's part of being human. It's part of who we are. It's a survival mechanism. The key is to act in spite of the fear or fears. Now, I know when I'm scared to do something, normally, if I allow myself to just get to the other side of the fear, there's usually a big reward. Whether for me it's growth, learning, pride, a sense of accomplishment. My greatest moments have come from acting on my greatest fears. Now, this morning I'm going to share with you 4 instances in which I faced my fears that led to defining moments in my life. The first one is marrying a Southerner. This is my dear husband, Jalal Omar Yaqub. I met Jalal in 1994, immediately after the North-South Civil War, and tensions between the North and South were at an all-time high, as unfortunately they still are. We met, the sparks flew, we fell in love and decided we wanted to get married. The only challenge was how to convince my family. And just to give you some background, I come from a traditionally conservative Hashemi family. And, like I said, he's from the south, from Aden from the south, and I'm from Sana'a from the north. And normally a Hashemi marries a Hashemi. Marrying outside of the lineage was considered taboo. However, when I approached my mother about wanting to marry Jalal and that, he's a non-Hashemi, her first reaction was disapproval and that we don't know him, we don't know his family, we don't know where he comes from. When other family members found out, they were alarmed, like, how could I do this? Who is he? What does he want? He probably has bad intentions. To the extent that, one of my uncles said to me threateningly, هذا الزواج ما عتمش. This marriage will not happen. Poor Jalal, he received many threats, on the phone. He was threatened, of being hurt, of being killed. And everyone said to him it would not happen, that our traditions and customs were too strong. So, like I said, it was a taboo for us to marry outside of a non-Hashemite family. And at the time, it just became a big scandal. It was like a modern-day Romeo and Juliet. So, but we persisted. And, after meeting many of the demands and conditions set by my family, I think they thought if they made it very difficult that we wouldn't end up getting married. But in any case, we did get married happily in 1995, alhamdulillah. And we were, have been blessed. Now it's been 17 years, alhamdulillah, mashallah, that we've been married. And, Jalal is the love of my life. He's the father of my children, my partner, and my best friend. And we've been blessed, alhamdulillah, with 4 beautiful daughters. But I always think, if I had listened to the fear within me, the fear within my community, if I had listened to the taboos, if I had married someone that they thought was more appropriate, that met their criteria, I would have missed on so much. I would have missed on a wonderful marriage and my beautiful family, alhamdulillah. The second fear that I faced was pursuing photography as a career. Now, people ask me, how did you get into photography? And it was very simple. When I was doing my undergraduate studies in business in the US, I took a 6-week summer course, an intensive 6-week summer course in photography. And, actually, before that, I apologize. I wrote a list of 25 things I wanted to do before I died, and one of them was to learn photography. And I took this course while I was in college. And I fell in love with photography immediately. And, this was a wonderful time for me to experiment and learn new things. And upon completion of my degree in 1994, I returned back to Yemen. And I was employed by Ahmed East, but all the while I was still pursuing my photography at the same time. I continued to do my photography. I exhibited with other artists, and to my great surprise, people were actually buying my work. They wanted to hire me for jobs. So after 3.5 years of working at Ahmed East, I decided to leave and become a full-time photographer, against my better judgment and the advice of other people, like how could you leave a steady job and a steady income? I didn't know what the outcome would be, but I knew it was the right thing for me. And it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. I mean, I got to travel all around Yemen to the most remote areas, meet fascinating people, photograph things in different sectors such as, development, education, women's issues, microfinance. And also, during this period, in 1999, along with other Yemeni women pioneers, I was honored, when I say women pioneers, like the first woman to ride a bike, the first graduate, the first pilot, the first engineer. I was honored as the first Yemeni woman photographer by Dr. Raufa Hassan, Allah yarhamha, at the Empirical Research Center at Sana'a University. In 1999, my husband had the opportunity to go study in the US, and I joined him and took advantage and enrolled at a school called Portfolio Center. It was an advertising school, because I had wanted to, improve my skills in photography. And it was a great opportunity again, and this is some of the work that, I did while I was there. And in 2003, we were blessed, alhamdulillah, Jalal and I, with our first daughter, Shadin, and after which immediately we returned to Yemen. And upon, our return, I was a full-time mom, stay-at-home mom, so, al-wahid yuwaswis when you're at home, and I started to question and doubt myself and think, did I make a correct choice in choosing photography as a career? Is it the right thing? I compared myself to my friends, who were doing things in development, medicine, law, and when I would be introduced at parties as a photographer, people would just, smile and say, oh, it's so nice to have a hobby, and that would infuriate me. But then I thought, when I was bayn nafsi, I thought, it had to start with me, that if I didn't take myself seriously, how would I expect anybody else to take me seriously? So at that point, I decided I am a photographer. I am an artist. What I do is meaningful to me and to others. And at that point, everything changed for me. I received many job opportunities. Again, I got to travel around Yemen. I worked, for several organizations. I exhibited my work locally and internationally. So it was, a great blessing. So the second fear that I faced was using myself in my work. In 2010, I participated in a workshop that was taught by Nabil Boutrous and organized by the French Cultural Center. And in it, I decided, after the exhibit, we were 8 photographers, we were going to have an exhibition called Words of Eyes. Now, after the, I decided to show and work on my work on the hijab. And one of the series, I had to use a woman, have somebody to photograph with children. I tried to find many women. I couldn't find any that would agree to be photographed. And as soon as they find out that the work will be exhibited or shown in a website, they immediately would change their mind. And I would tell them it's not a big deal. You're veiled. You're covered. So then I thought, if I'm asking them to take a risk and to be photographed, I said, why don't I put myself to the test and put myself in front of the camera? And so I did in this series, Mother, Daughter, Doll, in which I appear with my eldest daughter, Shadin. And, it's kind of like my commentary on the extremist views that's reflected in women's dress. And so a day or two before the exhibition, I woke up in a cold sweat, thinking, what have I done? And I'm majnoona, and badly. Who on earth shows their work, shows their photo of themselves in Yemen publicly? Nazalat butuni. I thought, my God, what was I thinking? What's my family going to think? What shame have I brought onto them? What are people going to say? I imagine people looking at my photos and making comments about me and my daughter. And I was really, really frightened. Then I seriously considered removing my photos from the work, from the exhibition. But then after Jalal, Allah yahfadh, calmed me down, I decided, that there wasn't much I could do now and that it was in the hands of God. And luckily, when I did show the work, no one from my family said anything, those that came to the exhibition, even if they wanted to. Only a few months later, my mother commented to me and said, I don't understand, she couldn't understand why I would show photos of me and my daughter. And I said to her, I was trying to impress her, I said to her, Mama, it's a work of art. It's been purchased by museums and institutions. To which she said, who the heck sells pictures of themselves and their daughter? She obviously was not very impressed. So after I'd done that work, I overcame my fear of using myself in my work. So in these photos, which are of the Satara series, I look at the veil, different veils in Yemen, how beautiful and unique and colorful they are compared to the black that we've imported. Anyway, so the fourth fear that I had is showing my controversial work on the hijab in Yemen. So that day, in addition, Mother-Daughter Doll was only one of the pieces that I showed, one of the series. My husband and I were worried that if I showed the work on the hijab, that it was maybe too controversial. Would people understand it? Would they digest it? Especially people in society who had extremist views. Would they think I was blasphemous? Would they think I was bad or criticizing me for criticizing the situation of women in Yemen, like airing your dirty laundry? So again, we decided, to put our fears down and to show it anyways, and what may come, may come. And this is one of the pieces I showed, which is eye motion. This is true self looking at personal identity. And the most controversial piece was what if, which, I imagine, what if it was the men who had to veil, not the women? And to my great surprise, many women, Yemeni women that are wearing the niqab approached me and said to me, "Thank you, I love this work. It shows the men how it feels like to wear a niqab." Whereas the men hated it. Many of them approached me and we had heated debates, and I was, surprised and shocked, at how some of them, couldn't see the humor in the piece. So like I said, for me, fear, if I allow myself, like I said, if you're scared, if I allow myself to get to the other side of the fear, for me, if I hadn't shown this work, because I showed it locally and internationally, so many wonderful things happened to me. I mean, it garnered a lot of debate and discussion and dialogue. It was all over the internet. Because of it, I have now a gallery in Dubai. I've exhibited of course, in Yemen, in Dubai, in France, and other countries as well, and hopefully in the US next year. The British Museum of London, the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the Berjil Foundation have all acquired my work as part of their permanent collection. I tell you this not to show off, but just to say, alhamdulillah, of course, Allah had a lot to do with this. I know, and I'm blessed, alhamdulillah. But that if I hadn't done all these things, if I hadn't overcome my fear, if I hadn't challenged myself and allowed myself to do these things, I would have missed on so much. And I do really sincerely believe that God helps those who help themselves. That He somehow, if you go this way, He'll meet you halfway. And, one of my favorite sayings is, leap and the net will appear. And I really believe that. And I always think they're the hands of God. That when you just, واحد يتوكل على الله and just, يغامر, and that God somehow will protect you and hold you. So, in conclusion, I want to say, have the courage to face your fears. Don't let fear be an obstacle to your dreams. And if you're scared to do something, just do it. Just do it. And don't wait for the fear to go, because it won't. Get used to the fear. So again, do what scares you, because you never know where it may lead you. And thank you.